We do begin tonight with an update, actually, on the biggest story in the country. And that, of course, is Hurricane Earl, the Category 2 hurricane, a significant hurricane currently bearing down on North Carolina's Outer Banks with winds of up to 110 miles an hour and a possible storm surge of 3 to 5 feet. Hurricane Earl's projected path sends it right up the East Coast, hitting Long Island and then Cape Cod tomorrow night and into Saturday morning. The last time the East Coast was so threatened by a storm that looked anything like this, it was nearly 20 years ago, in 1991, Hurricane Bob, which the National Weather Service blames for $620 million worth of damage and 6 deaths in the Northeast. Hurricane Earl beginning to affect the Outer Banks right now. NBC's Al Roker is in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina tonight. Mr. Roker, thank you very much for being with us. What can you tell us about what's happening right now?
Well, Ms. Maddow, as you can see, we've got quite a bit of wind going on. Nothing horrible, or maybe about 15, 20 mile per hour winds. The sea's behind me, very angry right now. We haven't seen the rain bands just yet. They are literally just to our south. Currently, Earl is about 160 miles, the center of Earl, about 160 miles south of us right now, about 625 miles south of Nantucket, Massachusetts. Right now, as you mentioned, 110 mile per hour winds. It's moving north at 18 miles per hour. Now, for a hurricane, that's a pretty quick clip. So we are watching this thing move rather rapidly. We expect by around 2 or 3 this morning, it should be parallel to the Outer Banks. We don't expect it to make landfall. Right now, it's moving north, and the latest look at the satellite shows that there's a little bit of a wobble to the east, but we've had a little wobble to the west, so we're going to be keeping an eye on this. We don't expect necessarily there to be landfall per se. However, when you consider that hurricane force winds extend out 70 miles from the center of Earl, and tropical force winds extend out about 205 miles from the center, you don't have to have landfall to get the direct action. Storm surge, as you mentioned, is going to be a factor about 3 to 5 feet above normal, and that's going to happen right about high tide. So we can expect some coastal flooding. Beach erosion will be a problem. Rainfall about 4 to 6 inches generally. Some areas locally may be higher here in the Outer Banks. Then this thing will take off like a slingshot later tomorrow morning, moving up along the eastern seaboard, running parallel to Maryland, New Jersey, Long Island. Probably won't have a direct hit on Long Island, but they'll be within either, if not the hurricane force winds, certainly tropical force winds. The biggest threat for landfall is probably Nantucket sometime late tomorrow night and about 8, 9 o'clock, and then continuing on into possibly mainland Canada. But for the most part, we think that landfall is going to be slight, but as I say, it doesn't have to make landfall, Rachel, to have some major impacts.
Al, based on all of those different factors that you talked about, all of those potential impacts and the expected track of the storm, how bad is this hurricane expected to be in the end? Looking at the most immediate threat, when you compare it with previous hurricanes that have hit North Carolina, how should we compare this to past storms?
Well, I think this is mostly going to be a coastal event in that some hurricanes have come in and then gone inland and caused major flooding, and that's usually what kills the most people and does the most damage. It's not the winds, it's the rain, it's the water, it's the storm surge. We're not going to see that widespread over North Carolina or Virginia right now on this current track. It will mostly be a coastal event. There'll be coastal flooding, coastal beach erosion. There will be some winds. There may be some scattered power outages. But if this continues on this track, and we're hoping it's making more of a northeasterly turn now and run parallel to the coast and maybe a little further away, we will see minimal damage. But again, it's still too early to tell. We got to wait for it to continue to make that turn before things really settle in.
Al Roker in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina for us tonight. Many thanks, Al. Really appreciate your time and your being out there on the weather for us.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rachel.